waves, good and evil, and all these mental considerations, you know, which are in the material world. I've acquired some false conception of who I am. It's known as the false ego or ahankara. And this false ego is the root of all my miseries because it dictates how my intelligence is functioning in the material world and how my mind is functioning. And so according to this false ego, I've developed a certain mentality of avoiding certain things and accepting certain things and using my intelligence to acquire those sense objects which my mind deems as favorable or pleasurable, and using my intelligence to avoid those things which I deem to be unfavorable, all on the basis of the false ego that I've acquired in this material world, you know. And so in this condition, constantly, living entity is constantly being kicked around. He's chasing one temporary pleasure after another. It's very fleeting. We're working very hard for these things. Stukalayam shashvatam. It's very temporary. It's very, very temporary. And it's full of misery ultimately. You know, it's actually leading, it's like we're being led on a wild goose chase. The mind is going and we're following the orders of the mind. Okay, let me get this, acquire this, and then I'll be happy. Oh, and then I work so hard to acquire it, and then I'm not happy. And then my mind says, okay, this, and then I go and do it. And now, well, sooner or later, you've taken so many births. So many births. You know, birth after birth after birth after birth, chasing this. But this is ignorance. This is ignorance. So Krishna very wonderfully gives us a process for how to overcome this ignorance. So let's keep going. Let's see. One who is able to withdraw senses from sense objects as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. So that state which is beyond the dualities of the material world is called samadhi, or Brahma. Krishna also goes Brahma Bhuta, the stage of transcendence, which is nashochati and akankshati. It's beyond lamentation and beyond hankering. And prasanatma, it's satisfying to the self. It's really satisfying to the self because one is situated in his eternal nature, Satchidananda. Of course, on the preliminary stage, it's not as blissful because there's no distinction. There's no distinction. So you're situated in pure Satchidananda, spiritual consciousness. There's no spiritual variety. So it's like a spiritual oneness, which is it's a conception that the soul which is situated in that consciousness is actually he's under the impression that the Lord he's become one with the Lord, because practically speaking in that conception you can't distinguish anything. Just like if I have a small candle and I hold the candle up to a fire, suddenly it appears as though that I can't distinguish between the two, right? They've seemed to have merged. The small candle seemingly merged into the big fire. But if one is careful using his intelligence, he can see that actually if he pulls the candle away, that candle still has its individuality. So it's kind of, in one sense, it's kind of an illusion. It's a kind of an illusion. Just like in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's a nice scene where the main character Gopakumar actually goes to this place where the yogis are residing in the Brahman effulgence. And he being a devotee and of finer discretion is able to see that the yogis are situated who are in quality one with the light, because they're in quality one with the light and they're situated within that Brahman effulgence. They themselves cannot perceive the other living entities around them, or the fact that all of this is coming from the Lord, you know. But Gopakumar actually is able to see this because of the finer, you know, discretion, because he's a devotee. This is quite interesting. But here Krishna says, one who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. So this is called, in the yoga system, this is called pratyahara, or to negate the senses, to kill the senses, to make them inert, Just like there's a really nice verse that Srila Rupa Goswami writes. He says, I don't know how much nectar is in two syllables, Krishna, but when I chant them, I have a desire for unlimited ears. When I hear the syllable, when I hear the names of Krishna, he has the desire for more ears. When he chants it, he has the desire for more tongues. And when the holy name enters the courtyard of his heart, the material senses become inert. They go to sleep. Because what's the active principle in the body anyways? It's the soul, right? So the soul is situated in the body, and we're giving, the soul is giving consciousness to all the various aspects of the body. It spreads throughout the body, the tones, everything. It's consciousness is spreading the soul is spreading consciousness throughout the body. So the senses are alive now, material senses, and I'm engaging them in material activities. Therefore, they become material, they become contaminated, they become dull, and I'm not actually able to taste the nectar of Krishna consciousness. But when the holy name enters the courtyard of the heart, those material senses become inert. And what happens is that these spiritual senses are provoked. And so the yogi, although it's seemingly not engaging in material activities, his activities don't stop. Actually, he's relishing Krishna conscious yogi, he's relishing spiritual activities now. Even while seemingly in this world, we're able to do so many spiritual activities with our senses, engage our senses so nicely in Krishna consciousness. But all of this is it's only possible because of this concession that we've been given, the holy name, chanting the holy name. Because the holy name is Krishna himself. When we chant the holy name and we take the association of Krishna, because we're in the association of Krishna, there's no chance of becoming impure ever. So if we remain firmly fixed and attached to the association of Krishna through chanting the holy name, which is non-different from him, he's God, holy name is God, then in the association of Krishna, there's no chance of me becoming impure as long as I remain in Krishna's association. Just like the sun, there's no chance of darkness being there if the sun is out and shining. Simply when something comes and covers, seemingly covers the sun, it doesn't actually, like a cloud. A cloud doesn't actually cover the sun, but it may cover the perception of the sun from the living entity's point of view. So similarly, Maya, this illusory energy, it comes and it seemingly covers our consciousness. Our natural spiritual senses, which are to be used in Krishna's service, which are full of bliss and full of knowledge and are eternal, are suddenly covered over by these material senses. And so it seems like, well, what happens is we forget about Krishna, forget about that reality, the absolute reality. We fall into forgetfulness, ignorance, and we take on so many different identities and take on different bodies with different senses to try to enjoy this world. It's all hellish because those material senses are full of ignorance. They're dull. They're nothing in comparison to our original spiritual senses, which become we revive them, our knowledge of our spiritual situation when we take up this process of Krishna consciousness. So when we take the association of Krishna, there's no chance of falling down or becoming impure. As Krishna says, that is illusory energy, is divine energy. It's very difficult to overcome, but one who surrenders unto him can cross over it very easily. And so what's quite interesting is that we read all these different instructions for Krishna, how to actually surrender to him. always think of me become, but practically speaking, every time we read these instructions, we can always understand what is he meaning? Well, chant his holy names. How do we know that? Well, because he came as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give this process. So there's every chance if we try to do things by ourselves artificially, that will fall down and we won't remain pure because we're minute, we're nothing. And Krishna says, Mayam etam tarantite, that his energy is very hard to overcome. We're very minute. Maya is very powerful. So if we try to do things, if we actually try here, the Krishna's just as we read it right here, one who is able to withdraw the senses from the sense objects, the tortoise withdraws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly. If we try to do that artificially, mechanically, and we try to do that mechanically, it's very difficult for us. How can we do that? How can we do that? In previous ages, when people had longer lifespans, they're able to. The process for doing that is breathing, practice pranayama. And when one breathes, his mind becomes not agitated by the senses. And he's focusing his attention on the senses. on the breath. And so his attention is not on his senses. So the pull of the senses, the agitation of the senses on the mind is cut off because the awareness has been fixed in the breath. But we can't do that now. I can't do that. Everywhere we go, so many distractions, so many things. We've been given a very nice concession, chanting Hare Krishna. I read one really nice prayer from Srila Ishwara Puri, who's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's spiritual master. He says, let the twice-born brahmanas practice solitary meditation and study of Vedanta in the forest and attain liberation in that way. But as for me, I will go on chanting Hare Krishna, and take birth after birth in the material world just to preach the Krishna consciousness, as a devotee does, because chanting Hare Krishna, chanting out loud, this is our process. And so this is very nice because by doing this, we attain the fruits of this yoga practice and much, much more, because we're also able to do it with other living entities. And when we do it, we can chant, and it's kirtan and sankirtan at that. So congregational chanting. So we're being urged to go out and practice this supreme and sublime method for liberation with other people and liberate the whole entire world. So this is a wonderful thing. This is a really wonderful thing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us. That's wonderful. Who is Krishna himself? Now he's just showing us what he's talking about in the Bhagavad Gita. It's very nice. And this chanting process, because it's not different from Krishna, we can fix our minds on the Lord very easily. And we can see him there in his nice, beautiful form, Shama Sundar, his inconceivable form, unlimited form, where he's wearing garments that resemble lightning, or his skin resembles the rain cloud. His eyes resemble the lotus flower. He has a wonderful belt in which his flute is there. And yeah, it's wonderful. There's some people think that the process for meditation and yoga or liberation is to try to make the mind inert, or to try to make the mind to nullify the thoughts in the mind or make them void. But practically speaking, you can't actually do that. There's no way to actually do that. So a lot of people will say, okay, yes, then you must become the observer of your thoughts and let them pass. But still, if you do that, okay, you're still looking at all these horrible thoughts. These horrible things are going by. So better is just to think about Krishna, and that's the instruction that he gives us. Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. He gives us that instruction to always think about him in the Bhagavad Gita. So let's continue. The test of a yogi, devotee, or self-realized soul is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. Most people, however, are servants of the senses and are thus directed by the dictation of the senses. That is the answer to the question as to how the yogi is situated. The senses are compared to venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely and without restriction. The yogi or the devotee must be very strong to control the serpents like a snake charmer. He never allows them to act independently. There are many injunctions in the revealed scriptures. Babuji, could you make sure that Maharaj doesn't have a comment or something? There should be a hand, if he does, there should be a hand up icon. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's see. He never allows them to act independently. There are many injunctions in the revealed scriptures. Some of them are do nots and some of them are do's. Unless one is able to follow the do's and the do nots, restricting oneself from sense enjoyment, from sense enjoyment. It is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. The best example set herein is the tortoise. The tortoise can at any moment wind up his senses and exhibit them again at any time for particular purposes. Similarly, the senses of the Krishna conscious persons are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord and are withdrawn otherwise. This always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise who keeps the senses within. That is the real meaning. And the nice thing is that we understand this because we're receiving this in parampara. Otherwise, people actually think, okay, the way the tortoise withdraws its limbs, he's using his own free will. He has that power to do that. So we're thinking, all right, I'll be like the tortoise, and then these are my senses, so let me withdraw them. But how strong are we? Not very strong. Not very strong. So people do this, and actually it doesn't work. They fall down. They fall down very quickly. But we can see the devotee who actually takes to the real process, chanting the holy names of the Lord, engaging his senses in devotional service. Of course, the emphasis is given on chanting the holy name because of all the processes of bhakti. Shravanam and Kirtanam are the most powerful limbs. They engage the most voracious of our sense organs, which is the tongue. Engages the tongue very nicely, engages the mind very nicely. The example is given that the sound vibration, when one hears something, his mind is immediately brought to that thing. Just like if you want to wake somebody up from their sleep, you don't cook something which smells very nice and try to wake them up like that. I mean, you see that in cartoons sometimes, but in reality, that's not really, you know. Oftentimes, if somebody's a really deep sleeper too, you can't even like touch them, you know, they won't wake up that way, you know, or their eyes are closed. So what do? Well, you clap or you chant Hare Krishna, you know, wake up, and they wake up, you know. Or even we have experience of this, practically speaking, when anytime we hear something, it invokes such deep emotion in us. Fear, if we hear a loud sound, fear automatically changes our consciousness. Sound vibration changes our consciousness very quickly. You know, we hear a song we like, we try, or it happen really, really quickly, you know. So this sound vibration is so nice because the second Hare Krishna enters the ears, through attentive chanting, particularly, which means to chant with distinction, to have a relationship with each syllable in the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, not just taking it as one like homogenous thing, but like, and kind of, but having a relationship with each syllable, each name in the mantra, you know, chanting it distinctly with attention. It goes into the ears, and then the mind can very easily attract or adhere to it. And well, in other words, the mantra is situated within the mind very easily, and the mind is situated within the mantra. And one can meditate on the significance of the mantra, of the names, the values of the names very easily. And in that state, well, it's very nice. All the senses are engaged, intelligence is engaged, mind is engaged. And one is meditating on the actual meaning of the mantra and he's deeply absorbed. And there's transcendental feelings are provoked and whatnot. So, but we can see, practically speaking, the effect of this, where so many yogis came here to this country practicing mechanical process of yoga, and what happens? They fall down. They make some disciples, usually female disciples, who are attracted to, you know, the show bottle thing, right? A yogi sitting there in lotus pose, very spine straight, and he's chanting some om or something and making a show of him being in samadhi. His eyes are rolling back, you know. And people who are gullible are attracted, so they make a lot of female disciples. And what happens? They fall down, you know, thinking of one particular Swami, and his disciples actually kicked him out. Said, okay, now it's time for you to go back to India. You know, so we see this happen, but we have the example. I'm particularly thinking of a very famous example of Srila Haridas Thakur, who was performing his bhajan, his Harinam bhajan, like he does, chanting his 300,000 names in his bhajan kutir with his tulsi plant is there. And he was approached by the personification of Maya in the form of a prostitute to come and try to enjoy with him. And she approached him, and he's such a gentleman, and he's free from lust, so he has no problems, you know. So, okay, yeah, I'll enjoy with you. Let me finish chanting though. Let me finish chanting, and then I can enjoy with you. I have all the time in the world to enjoy with you. They said, come back, you know, or whatever. And then, well, basically what ends up happening is that she gets the association of Srila Haridas Thakur. She hears his purified chanting, and she herself becomes a devotee. And so that's our process, you know. It's wonderful. So only reason why we understand that this verse here is because of parampara. We were given the meaning. Actually, what this means is not to try to artificially do any of these things, but to surrender to the process of Krishna consciousness, chanting the holy name of the Lord, engaging in devotional service, preaching Krishna consciousness. Okay, next verse. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions, nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, a sense restriction by some spiritual process like Astanga Yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, etc. is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. But one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness, no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. Such restrictions are only good if one actually has a taste for Krishna. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. So we have such a nice process, a nice natural process. Teaching, distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, you know, we have a taste for actually socializing and partying, but the real party is when you go out and actually distribute Srila Prabhupada's books and chant the holy name, you know, and doing so by preaching That's also kirtan. That's Sankirtan, is speaking. And somebody takes a set of Srila Prabhupada's books and they take it home with them. And you engage that living entity in so much service as well. They have these books in their home. Where do they keep them? Where's the home? Your devotion. And they can also distribute them to somebody else. Like that. And while we're preaching, we become so convinced. It's a shortcut. We become so convinced, because we meet so many opposing elements, and we see that that guy, he's actually he's addicted to the thing which I'm also conditioned towards being attracted to. And I see, man, once I've stepped away from it and come into Krishna consciousness, I'm able to see very firsthand the effects of material life. It's horrible. Consciousness becomes so degraded. You become like an animal, not even knowing that I'm not this body, all this, it's horrible. So when we go out and preach, we oppose we're fighting against the material energy, and we're actually we become so convinced of what we're doing, just like Krishna says, Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartam Avyayam, that this process is joyfully performed and it gives direct perception of the self, gives direct perception of the self. So we're able to see that very practically. When you actually start to chant Hare Krishna, you're able to see, you're able to gauge it very practically. Okay, yeah, I was chanting japa today and it was so nice. I was practically Krishna conscious. I didn't really think about anything other than the holy name, and I got absorbed. I was absorbed. I was chanting with such nice distinction, and I was really grasping the value, the inherent value in the holy name, and I was absorbed, Or when I opened up Prabhupada's book today, and all it took was I read the first line, and I instantly hit with a nice realization, or I understand the value of this, or the meaning, the significance of this, or so. And then other times we're able to see the whole time I was chanting, I was just practically thinking about my body, or my knees hurting, or my head hurting, suffering like hell. So we can see, practically speaking, gauge how Krishna conscious we are. Now, other processes, not like that. You have to speculate your way through it. It's pretty bogus. It's difficult, but this is very nice process. So we can understand practically that, okay, yeah, this is the goal of life, to become Krishna conscious. So let me engage in the process with intensity. Let me hear Bhagavatam class, and then let me go out and preach what I've heard. Let me chant the holy name with intensity. Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, powerful devotional service. Let me attend the arti and actually try to muster up some energy and love for the deities, Shri Gornitai. Let me do that. Or let me actually, when I receive the prasadam which has been offered to them, honor it. Actually honor it. It's nice. And also you can see when elevated devotees honor the prasad, like I was watching. It's so nice. If you see them, the look on their face, there's so much ecstasy when they smell the flower, and they go for, 3 or 4 hits. It's so amazing. It's so amazing. So, all right, let's see. Did we read the purport to this one, text 59? Did I read that one yet? Yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, Jai. The senses are so strong and impetuous. The next verse. Senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Again, we have so many examples in Shastra of this. Many examples. Durvasa Muni with Ambarish Maharaj, he was totally overcome with anger and envy. Shobari Muni is another one. Yeah, he was meditating in the ocean, in the sea, doing this elaborate meditation, and it's so crazy. He saw these fish engaging in sex, and he became, lusty. So another example, powerful, powerful. Vishwamitra, Menika, am I thinking the right one? Yep. Powerful, powerful personalities who do these things. And so many other examples. Hiranyakashipu, they practice this powerful yoga, and then they overcome by the demoniac tendency, and then they use this stuff to completely enjoy the world. Of course, that was the intention, anyways. But it may happen that one might have some good intentions of doing this, and along the way, he gets perverted with power. All these different things, becomes corrupt, and tries to use his power to enjoy the world, trick people, and do all these different things. So we have to receive the conclusion. Devotional service is the conclusion. If we notice that any time our desire for pure devotional service, and the meaning of Hare Krishna has been very nicely given to us by Srila Prabhupada. Oh my Lord, please engage me in your devotional service. It's very nice. That's the meaning. So we can meditate on that meaning and get absorbed. But anytime we notice that our desire and when we're performing our activities, our desire is covered over, then that's also another practical way to see this. What is my desire? Do I have any desire for enjoyment or mukti, liberation from this? If I have those two desires, then I can see, actually, I'm not desiring pure devotional service for Krishna. So I haven't quite understood the conclusion yet. So we have to receive the conclusion. The Bhakti Vedanta, it's in the purports, receive the conclusion of Srila Prabhupada, he gives it to us. So that our desire isn't covered over by those things. Because, very often we do see that somebody is actually practicing externally the process of devotional service. But in his heart, it's right here, it's like it happens every day, practicing this. But I'm seeing my heart, I have the desire for sense enjoyment. I have the desire for, sense enjoyment, basically. So, it's nice, there's purification there, but we can see. And we keep hearing, understand the conclusion, keep meditating on the conclusion, it's bhakti yoga. If not, then we create such a disturbance, It's like it's one of the worst things. It's abominable to actually, lead someone astray from the conclusion by posing as somebody who's bringing them towards knowledge. This is a horrible thing to do, and it happens all the time. Luckily, we have Srila Prabhupada here, who's given us everything, and the Lord is so nice that He gives the platform for His pure devotee to actually preach the pure message for all people to hear. And because of Srila Prabhupada, everyone now knows about Hare Krishna, and we have these books, and we can distribute them so that people also know the conclusion nicely. Because, yeah, we can do nice kirtans and nice prasadam and nice deity worship. Krishna actually says, he says, Dravya Mayad Yoga, or Dravya Mayad Yogya, or the sacrificing one's material possessions. It's nice, but above that is Jnana Yogya, or sacrificing one's intelligence, one's knowledge. What that means is actually understanding Krishna consciousness, the philosophy. So if we don't do that, then people don't actually take the message. And so they come here and sure, they give a nice donation for the nice deity worship, but if nobody preaches to them, then they go down the street to the Hindu temple and do the same thing, or they go to the gas station and do that. They just put their money wherever, but we actually have to preach this to them, Jnana Yogya. So we do that by distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. So we do that, you know. Prabhupada's giving the Bhaktivedanta purports are here. So we give them that knowledge, you know. And what we're actually preaching is we're just trying to understand what Srila Prabhupada is saying and speak that to them as well. And yeah, because so many people come, you know, and they see the fired up Harinam and they will dance, you know, which they make eternal advancement for that, eternal benefit for that. But, you know, they don't practically they don't understand, or they don't give their intelligence to trying to understand this. And so their intelligence is, well, we have to purify the intelligence, otherwise they leave and they use their intelligence to acquire so many different things. So we want to engage their intelligence in Krishna consciousness, you know. That's really, really important. So of course we have nice preaching programs for that, you know, so many nice things for that. But yeah, okay, let's continue. There are many learned sages, philosophers, and transcendentalists who try to conquer the senses, but in spite of their endeavors, even the greatest of them sometimes fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to the agitated mind. Even Vishwamitra, a great sage and perfect yogi, was misled by Menaka into sex enjoyment, although the yogi was endeavoring for sense control with severe types of penance and yoga practice. And of course, there are so many similar instances in the history of the world. Therefore, it is very difficult to control the mind and the senses without becoming fully Krishna conscious. Without engaging the mind in Krishna, one cannot cease such material engagements. A practical example is given by Sri Yamuna Acharya, a great saint and devotee who says, since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, and I have been engaged, and I have been enjoying, I have been enjoying an ever new transcendental humor. Whenever I think of sex life with a woman, my face at once turns from it and I spit at the thought. Krishna consciousness is such a transcendently nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. It is as if a hungry man had satisfied his hunger by a sufficient quantity of nutritious eatables. Maharaj Ambarisha also conquered a great yogi, Durvasa Muni, simply because his mind was engaged in Krishna consciousness. Okay, any comments or anything? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. This is a purport in first canto, second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, verse 7. And it was talking about Naishkarma, which is that means not undertaking activities that produce good or bad effects. So I thought this was like very applicable to what you're talking about. Prabhupada further went on to say, negation does not mean negation of the positive. Negation of the non-essentials does not mean negation of the essentials. So similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. So he was talking about establishing this higher taste, which he talked on a few times. So I thought that was great. And then I also liked what you had to say about Ishvara Muni. Puri? Ishvara Puri? Sorry. Just about the Sankirtan movement. And I kind of was thinking about how like this Sankirtan, this hearing and chanting that we're doing right now is like the most useful thing that we could be doing, period. And this got me really fired up. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was a nice comment. Yeah, we should understand that if somebody's engaged in the Sankirtan movement, it's because he's actually undergone all austerities and penances in previous lives, and he's he's, you know, achieved the highest thing. This is the result of actually practicing following the Shastras, one eventually attains this position where he's able to do this. You know, Bahunam Janmanamante Gyanavam Mam Prapadite. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahama Sudurlabha. After many, many births, one is situated in knowledge, surrenders unto me. What does that look like? Well, it looks Krishna consciousness. So we're doing this. So yeah, Ishwar Puri is making a nice point that those brahmanas are doing this solitary meditation to attain this impersonal liberation and studying of the Vedanta philosophy, but we're chanting Hare Krishna because we've already undergone all those processes. I mean, we've attained the result of doing those things. Because like you said, we found the higher thing, you know, a spiritual variety. This is spiritual variety. It's blissful. Susukam Kartamavyayam is blissfully performed, you know, and there's no kind of artificial negation of anything or whatever, just replacing nothing. Just like as a kid playing with toys and you give those up, start playing with girls and then give that up, or video game, you know, whatever, cars, things like that. And then you eventually come to Krishna consciousness. Yeah.
Yeah, that artificial like process you're talking about, like just, you know, trying to do what doesn't work in this age, which is, you know, breathing in that life air and trying to in that way, like the tortoise, retract one's self from its senses. It's not, it's like artificial, like you said. So it's like that activity. Krishna consciousness is like it's activity. So yeah, and it's just, that's starting to click for me a little bit more. And I think that, yeah, this class that you gave was a big part of that. So thank you, Prabhu.
Thanks, Prabhuji. Yeah, it's blissful activity. It's activity which surpasses all the mundane activities. And we're singing and we're dancing and we're chanting. This is blissful. And Jagannath was showing me a kirtan that he was watching before we did the arti, and everyone was going crazy, doing backflips and doing all these things. And so this is the perfect. I mean, this is what we're looking for. This is the bliss. This is the ecstasy. You know, perfect engagement. You know. Anyway, so that's the point. That's why devotees are so. I mean, they have no attraction for it anymore. Perfectly, happily, and blissfully engaged in Krishna's service. They have no attraction for these things anymore. You know. Anyways, okay. Thank you so much for tolerating me, devotees. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, ki jai. Srila Prabhupada, ki jai.